Morning, Shane. Thanks very much for joining us again on Blue Notes at the morning of the interim result. It's your first result as CEO and there's a lot of moving parts. The headline number is down, but can you walk us through the major strengths and where the weak spots were?
Sure, there's really three moving parts from my perspective. There's what's happening in our core business, the business that our customers see every day. And actually the story there's a really good one. Our Australia and New Zealand franchises in particular are doing very, very well, continuing to grow. That's the first part. The second piece of it is really about some of the difficult decisions we've made to reposition the bank for the future. And that's primarily in the institutional bank. And we've made some hard calls there about being prepared to let business go, shrink some of those businesses to get it right-sized for the future. And that has impacts across all sorts of lines in our P&L. And then the third part are some of what we've called in the release specified items. And these are some of the big changes we've made around some of the accounting. One's to do with accelerating software depreciation. That's just to recognise we live in a digital world and technology depreciates much faster than it used to. So that's one. Two, we've taken some charges against some of the minority investments we have in Asia. And three, we've taken a charge also to continue this good work around simplification and taking cost out in the future.
The other key point of the result is the dividends down. Does that reflect this particular result? Because you've also made some comments about ongoing dividend policy.
Yeah, no, it's not really about this year's result or this half. It's really about the future. As part of the repositioning of the bank, the rebalancing, setting it up for growth in the future, we've had to make some decisions about how we see the future environment in the world. And frankly, we see it in a more subdued, lower growth world. And so we've got to reset expectations around that. And part of the resetting is also getting the dividend on a sustainable, conservative and fully frankable basis, and that's why we've made the call today.
The credit cycle in recent years for banks has been benign, in fact, even better than benign, and a major driver of bank profits. Now, the cycle clearly has turned now. Are you comfortable with the credit quality in the ANZ book at the moment?
Yeah, we are. We've been repositioning the book for some years. I think the reality is the cycle has turned. Now, there'll be debate about the extent and speed of that turn, but it's undoubtedly turned. In fact, our losses in this half were around our long-term average. I think it's fair to say that we got to that average a little bit faster than we would have expected. But where we sit today, we feel very comfortable with the quality of the book and the risks that we have going forward.
Looking at the business overall, and you've touched on this in your earlier answer, but in short, Australia and New Zealand look very good, institutional not so good. How did you see that, as the components of the portfolio?
Oh, that's absolutely right. Retail and commercial, Australia and New Zealand, terrific businesses, in fact, doing very, very well. Continuing to acquire customers, continuing to grow market share, continuing to drive productivity. They're great businesses and we want to have more of those in our portfolio. The institutional business, the marketplace, not just here in Australia, and certainly not just ANZ, across the world is doing it tough. Margins are under pressure, intense competition. A lot of kind of stubborn cost pressures in that business around regulation, around the needs of technology. And then you add to that the turn in the credit cycle that we're talking about is mostly in the institutional sector. That makes it a really tough set of ingredients. And so we've decided not to just let that happen to us, to really try and get ahead of it and take some hard calls about the business we want to be in. And those restructuring of that business is having an impact, and you see that in this half, and it'll continue to have for some period of time.
And indeed, more broadly, you've called out the work on simplifying the bank with obviously an eye on revenue and the cost challenges. And you've said that's for the immediate period. It'll be consolidation and transition. So how far through is that work and how long before we expect to see the result?
Look, we've been on that path for a little while, probably over the last 18 months, but it's really gathered pace clearly in the last couple of months. And so we're only at the beginning of that. We've still got a lot of work to do, because the future bank that we see is a simpler one that's really focused on where we can win and do really amazing things for our customers. And some of that's to do in the retail and commercial space, and it's little things like launching Apple Pay this week. That's the stuff we want to be known for and famous for and do more and more of that. And secondly, getting institutional right. So it's going to take us a little bit of time. So we'll be through this phase at least for the next 12 to 18 months and then emerge as a much stronger and better balanced organisation.
But a bank still with a focus on, or not a focus on Asia, but Asia as an integral part of the operation.
Absolutely. Asia is what our customers want and what they do. And we've actually got something pretty unique in our capability there. We've just got to get it right sized for what our customers need and want for the future world as we see it. So we've probably overbuilt a little bit there, probably spent a bit too much money, and now we're just getting it right. That's okay. We can do it, and we can actually transform that business pretty quickly.
It's not unusual for new CEOs to use their first result to clear the decks. Is that what we're seeing here?
No. It's not about clearing the decks. It's really about recognising the future environment in which we operate. As I said, we think it's going to be a bit tougher, a little bit more subdued. And the right thing for us to do is get ahead of that and get the business on a sound footing for it. So it's not about clearing the decks. It's really just a recognition of the world that we live in.
Well, thanks very much, Shane, for speaking with Blue Notes again.
Thank you.